Welcome to Module 8, Implementation and Alternative Approaches. Oftentimes, when we undertake a strategic plan, we create this elaborate document that has taken our organization months to prepare. We've utilized a great deal of our organization's resources, both in terms of time and money, and then we set the strategic plan aside on the shelf for the next 3 to 5 years, or until we plan to conduct our organization's next strategic plan. And so our strategic plan is never seen again. Implementation of our strategies and making sure that our strategic plan is useful and relevant is perhaps the most important component of the entire strategic planning process. It's pointless to develop a strategic plan, invest your organization's resources, only to use the final document as a book holder. One of the main reasons that implementation of an organization's strategic plan fails to occur is because of strategic dissonance. Strategic dissonance is a discrepancy between upper management's intended strategy and the strategy that's actually implemented by the lower levels of management. In general, upper management sets the overall organizational strategy, but it's the middle and lower level managers that actually have to carry out the strategy. Now, while strategic dissonance can indicate that these middle and lower level managers aren't doing what they should be doing in order to help carry out the organization's strategy or the upper management's intended strategy, it can also mean that the upper management's intended strategy is out of date and needs to be changed. Take some time to review the following figure, which illustrates strategic dissonance and how it can occur within our organizations. Organizations are going to be most successful at responding to strategic dissonance by 1. Evaluating information on the misalignment, by 2. Gathering information from frontline employees or those at the middle and lower level ranks of the executive ladder, or by 3. Devoting organizational resources to the new direction set out in the strategic plan. Ultimately, managers have to actively look for signs of strategic dissonance. If you don't actively look for signs of strategic dissonance, then you leave open the possibility that the strategic plan that you've invested so much time and resources into will only end up as a bookend holding books on your bookshelf. Another reason that strategic planning implementation may fail is because the approach that you use to undertake your strategic planning process may not be the most appropriate approach for your organization. So in this course, we've covered Bryson's strategy change cycle pretty in depth, but there are many other approaches to strategic planning, and not all of these approaches operate in the same way. We know that not every organization will have the capacity to use Bryson's strategy change cycle, especially smaller organizations. Therefore, some organizations will need a process that's doable as well as useful. Also, when time constraints are a factor, organizations may choose a more efficient process. One alternative approach is appreciative inquiry. Appreciative inquiry comes from positive organizational studies, and it's the exploration of what gives life to human systems when they function best. But what does this mean? Really, all this means is that appreciative inquiry involves the art and practice of asking questions that strengthen a system's capacity to heighten its positive potential. Appreciative inquiry is different from other strategic planning methodologies, and it should not be considered problem solving. With problem solving, you identify the problem, you conduct root cause analysis, you brainstorm potential solutions, and you analyze those solutions, and then you develop an action plan. If we were to use a metaphor of what problem solving is, problem solving views our organizations as deficit-based. Traditional strategic planning frameworks, including Bryson's strategy change cycle, are problem-solving approaches to strategic planning. Contrary to strategic planning approaches that take a problem-based view of our organizations, appreciative inquiry looks at our organizations from an asset-based perspective. Appreciative inquiry, instead of identifying problems as in problem solving, appreciative inquiry asks what is or what gives life to our organizations. And instead of conducting root cause analysis, we look at what might be. What are our organization's potentials? We then, in appreciative inquiry, determine what should be instead of brainstorming solutions and analyzing. And then, instead of developing action plans, we create what will be. Now, all of this might seem very abstract, but we'll look at a practical example of problem solving versus appreciative inquiry. In appreciative inquiry, it's all about the narrative and the language that we use within our organization. So from a problem-solving or a deficit-based perspective, we might look at issues such as sexual harassment, employee turnover, low morale, turfism or silos within the organization, customer complaints, lack of training, and missed commitments. Now, when we view our organization from an appreciative inquiry perspective, we change these deficit issues into affirmative topics. So instead of sexual harassment, we talk about positive cross-gender working relationships. Instead of employee turnover, we look at employee longevity. Why are employees staying with our organizations so long? Instead of low morale, we look at highly motivated individuals within our organization. Instead of turfism and silos, we look at high-performing teams. Customer complaints are viewed as customer compliments. And instead of lack of training, we look at highly skilled employees. Missed commitments are viewed as commitments that are met. With appreciative inquiry, we take the view that by changing the language that we use within our organizations changes the intent. So we go from SWOT analysis to SOAR analysis. So recall SWOT analysis looked at our organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. With SOAR analysis, we continue to look at the strengths and opportunities of our organization, but we also now look at aspirations and results. Business school professor John Hayes provides a great overview of appreciative inquiry at the link below. Take a moment to review this chart that displays the differences between SWOT analysis and SOAR analysis. For organizations that are not in a position to view their organization from a problem-based perspective, appreciative inquiry may help to motivate employees, and this could lead to greater likelihood of strategy implementation, and not just